Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Vincitore from Atlantic University, and I'm sitting here with Dr. Falami Devoe, a brand new doctor at that, right?
Yes, yes, thank you. I am a newly doctor, as I've heard people keep say doctor. Yes, I am.
How does that feel? Brand new?
Wow, it's a surreal feeling. It is really surreal, and it's still sinking in as folks are saying Dr. DeVoe or Dr. Falami, and I'm like, oh, that is me.
That's
So
me.
it's me, and which is I'm grateful to be here. Yeah.
Grateful to be through that and
Through,
finished
yes,
through.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm in the middle of one,
That's
so
right. That's right.
I
PhD
feel you.
here. Yes.
So what did you finish your degree in, and what was your research in as part of that degree?
So my doctorate is in leadership and change, and my research is around African American women and the experiences of their bodies. And so I am very excited. And speaking of African American experience of their bodies, I do want to pause, Rachel, right now, just to express my concern for the lack of justice for Breonna Taylor.
Thank you. Good pause.
Yeah, so I do wanted to just put that into this space because she is as my sister, and so I do recognize the importance of holding space.
I think it's important to hold space for her
Mhm,
and every other person of color
mhm,
who has
mhm,
fallen victim to that sort of criminal activity.
mhm,
Somebody took her life for no
mhm,
reason.
mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. So I call her name Breonna Taylor. So.
Thank you for that. And I'm happy that you work in that community because you are one hell of a powerful soul.
Well, thank you, thank you. I give thanks, and my work is who I am, and as a scholar, practitioner, researcher, um, I knew that I needed to focus my work with what I'm passionate about and who I am, and what I said, the experiences of Black women in their bodies. So it really started with my own story of body dissatisfaction and understanding that the expectations of who I am and what constitutes me as beautiful were not aligned to what I know that I am, in terms of the expectation to be thin and to have long hair and lighter skin and
Mm.
so forth. um, that has been my expectation my entire life, right? And that constituted being beautiful. And I struggled with that. And then I became this holistic wellness practitioner. And then I started working with women who struggled with their weight and struggled with their bodies. And it was like a mirror I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me. I'm still kind of dealing with these issues. And so then I had to kind of walk through that process myself as I was working with women. And then I created this whole curriculum. I'm giving you the abbreviated story. There's
I
more
am
to
sure you talked forever on this during your
it.
defense.
Yes, yes. So, then I fast forward, I created this curriculum, um, and then kind of moved away from talking about myself as a holistic wellness practitioner, even though I am that certified. I wanted to put emphasis on what I do, body liberation.
Mm.
And so I call myself body liberation and self-care coach. And so that is what my work is. My research then led to talking about what are the other experiences of Black women in their bodies. And so I was still thinking, of course, about those that struggle, because in the research, oftentimes, more times than not, oh, Black women don't struggle with their bodies. They love their bodies, they accept it, And I'm like,
Mm.
hold on, that's not that's not as accurate as, and so that's where I started to question. So my research then, led me to this beautiful, just a beautiful experiences with 10 women that I worked with for this project. And we gathered together as sisters and to share the diverse yet similar experiences of our bodies, from Of course, dealing with colorism, dealing with sizeism. Then I had a breast cancer survivor to share her experience of her body. Then I had several of the sisters to talk about their experiences of sexual abuse, domestic violence, domestic abuse, so those are experiences that they shared about their body. And then women who shared about how they felt better about themselves and their bodies after they came out.
After they came out, huh?
After they came out and being in a same gender relationship. So it was very, very just amazing. And to see these liberatory acts, as I call them, in spite of living in this, hegemonic, patriarchal, we can go on society, that they found liberation and continue. And it's a journey. It is a journey that they're on. Yeah.
If you talk about liberation after coming out, tell me, what is that difference? I did quite a bit of gender research in one of my degrees, but I want you to talk about it, because that's such an interesting piece of this story here.
Mm-hmm. So after this one particular sister said, before she came out, she felt like she was confined to these standards, these, patriarchal standards, these European standards,
Yep.
that women should look a certain way and be sized in a certain way. And she found that being in a relationship with a woman, her partner, her wife, loved her body just the way it was, all the curves, within it. And there was not the same expectation that was, promoted being, in this relationship versus in a heterosexual relationship. So she felt it was freeing. One other participant said that she went to several women festivals, and where, women would gather together, kind of like folk, have folk songs and music and campfires and things like that. And she said the women would tell her how beautiful she was when they saw her body as she walked down the hill. She was naked, and she was like, they would say, "Oh, she's beautiful. You're a goddess. You're a goddess." So this notion of beauty and goddess, and then it makes you reflect on the goddess Venus of Willendorf, and where she had this very voluptuous self, right? And so these women spoke very fondly of, I feel better. I feel now that I've come out and I'm able to be who I am.
That's so interesting. I know those festivals, and I know that those feelings when you are around other women who just straight, bi, lesbian, asexual, whatever it may be, it's a respect for the person and the body, because you're not just the skin you're in, you are a holistic, cosmic being.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful when someone sees you that way.
Absolutely. You're seeing through your spirit. And so, and I knew that prior to writing, even getting into the research part, I knew there was more than just body positivity. It's a mindset, and liberation is a mindset. And for me, body positivity is surface, and particularly with Black women of color, it goes deeper because of the scars and the residuals of colonialism that have impacted the way in which our narrative has been shaped.
So you briefly touched on colorism, and not many people understand that in a Black community. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, so colorism is the discrimination against the person due to their skin complexion. And the darker the color, the more oppressive condition that could arise. The lighter, the better. And that again goes back to during slavery. When we go back to times where the house nigger, if you will, house slave, was the one who was of lighter complexion, and was more acceptable,
Sure.
than the one who was the darker, or the one who was the field slave, the one that was in the fields mining, taking care of
Sure.
the fields. So there's this distinction between lighter is better and darker is not,
Within the Black
within the
community.
Black community,
And
within the Black
I think a
community.
lot of people don't understand that, is that not only does your community deal with racism from the outside, from
Mhm,
white people, but
mhm.
there's also colorism within the community.
Absolutely,
That's a
absolutely.
big hurdle to get over.
Yes, yes. Well, and it comes from, again, what we have been
Yep.
trained, socialized into thinking way back when. And so it just continues on. But it is this perception that the lighter, the better, you're more beautiful. Then the darker, you're not as beautiful. There are very derogatory terms that are associated with both ends of the spectrum, from lighter complexion to darker
Of course.
complexion.
Sure. Within the
Mhm.
community,
Within the
that's
community, yes.
so hurtful within a community. And
Oh,
that's
it absolutely is. It is. It's debilitating. It really is, because instead of finding, again, that we are in common, we have so much in common. This is us. This is who we are. There are many that strip that away.
when I was talking to Lisa about it, we really talked about everybody suffers individually, as in this individual body. But I don't have generational suffering.
Mm-hmm,
Maybe a
mm-hmm.
little, but nothing like those who have been indigenous and enslaved, or taken from their homes and enslaved. And this just sounds like another symptom of generational pain.
Absolute trauma. Trauma.
Absolutely generational trauma.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you talk about these women and your 10 research sisters is what you call
Mm-hmm.
them, which I
That's
think
right.
is one of the sweetest terms I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And you were talking about writing a poem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that poem and how that came about.
Yeah. So, um, literally, when I was in the data, and
Yeah.
when I say in the data, listening to the interviews after the study, I actually did worked with the women for 6 weeks via Zoom, and after I literally just delved into the recordings and listening over and over, watching, just really embodying each word, each conversation. And literally, Rachel, it was like a cadence that began
Mm.
to move, and the words began to just circle into like poems in my head. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And I'm a poet. And so, I started to write this information down, and I shared this information with my dissertation chair, my illustrious chair, Dr. Falami Devoe, who I'll put aside here, who is amazing in gendered racism. She has a book, Everyday Racism. There we go. I'll put that plug out there.
There you go. She'll send you a check later.
Right. She'll shoot me a check later. I'm going to tell her that. I have something else better. But so I heard these poems, and I talked to her about it, and she said, you can report this information, their findings in your dissertation, in poems. And I began to look that up, and I found this word called poetic transcription. I was like, whoa, poetic transcription, this is amazing. So I was able to use their words that they talked about, their stories, their experiences of their bodies, using their exact words, and create poems with them. And it was an emotionally it was an amazing experience, but it was just emotional because I was there
Yeah.
every single
Yeah.
time, every word, every way I crafted the poem. So it was an honor. It really was.
I can see
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, and when I talked to the women, they were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this." That's
How
you.
amazing to have, your somewhat pain, some joy,
Mhm.
deep secrets of your soul and somebody takes it and takes the time to put it into a poem.
Yeah.
That's love.
Thank you. Yes. And it was. And I love them dearly. Each and every
That's
one of
love.
them.
That's interesting. I've never heard of poetic transcription. And I think that's interesting. You know, as I go through my own research, you know this, going through a doctor, you kind of get pigeonholed or tunnel
Yes.
vision and you forget
Yes.
that there is this world of creativity out there.
Absolutely. And I encourage those who are in that process to think about your passion, think about who you are and what you do. And, you know, how do you want to really tell this story? How do you want this story to be told in a way that best fits, you know, participants, you know, or researchers or whomever you call them. So
I think that's going to be really valuable to our Atlantic University students because you are bringing in this wild and big, beautiful, different ideology. And it works because transpersonal psychology and mind for leadership are kind of open to the universe. And you are bringing in poetic transcription and your own background. And then you have something we were talking about earlier called photo voice. You want to talk about that for a second? Because that's fascinating.
Yes. So that was the major crux of the project, was for, and as I said, a photo artist, was for the women to share their images in photos. And that is what the crux of photo voice is that a researcher will go into a community and to gather co-researchers and to say, here's a camera. Why don't you share what the issues are? What do you think the issues are within this community? And they then, and of course they are taught about, you know, photo 101. But the most important aspect is that the co-researchers have the cameras and can tell the stories in images. And that is what photo voice is. It gives the photo researcher, the co-researcher, the opportunity to share their voice through the image.
Fascinating. Imagine a project like this, because you are working on a course called Leading from the Inside Out.
Yes.
That would be an amazing project.
Yes. That is in the works. That's what I'm thinking about.
I love these conversations. So I'm like, oh, what else can I steal from you?
Yes.
But I like anything. And it sounds like some of your teaching philosophy really is not only do you have to transform yourself, but you have to apply that to the real world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you're not out there bringing it in and putting it back out, what's the point if you're just this kind of vacuum and you don't do anything with it?
Right. Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about your teaching philosophy and what's valuable to you.
Well, you hit it on the nail, Rachel. Honestly, I believe in the importance of allowing students to have their voice and to shape their voice, as well as to be able to see how to apply what is learned here in the real world. I did this. I taught high school. You know, and you know, in high school, you have these standards and objectives and yada, yada, yada. I needed to break it down so they understand, why is it important that you have to write in this way? Well, because if you are writing for your job application, or, you know, you have to transfer that. So that's very important for me to share how important it is what you're learning now in the class to the practical world. Being able to, again, to have voice, you know, crafting your voice, that's rich. If you can share how important that is with students, that's a gold mine.
But I think that's it exactly. It's why we teach people how to think, because, you know, a 2-year-old is frustrated and they want something on the counter, so they yell. Scream, I want this on the counter. The same thing happens to people in an adult way when they can't express themselves. They yell and scream and kick and fight. But if you can unlock that vocabulary, unlock that method of the mind and the heart, so you can communicate, you hurt me. My feelings are hurt. You bring me joy.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if we all could just speak.
Right.
And that's what we need to teach people. You don't have to write like Hemingway.
No, no.
But we want to teach people how to put those thoughts and feelings that are kind of nebulous within their soul onto paper so it's communicated to someone else.
Right. And also communicating that they're valued.
Valued. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's important, because once you understand that you're valued, that what you're saying is a value, then you begin to shape that voice even more. Right. And so that's even more powerful, you know, to
Sure. And with you're bringing art into it. Not everybody can write. Yes. That's not everybody's expression. Maybe they're the photographer, they're the poet.
Right.
You know, the dancer, the artist, anything that it is that really gives creativity and voice to that soul. Isn't that fascinating?
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, it is.
I'm so glad you're here.
I am too.
So, Dr. Falami, you are now on faculty of the Mindful Leadership program, working on kind of redeveloping, breathing some different life into leading from the inside out. And I bet we'll find some other projects to put you on.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Of course. Do you have any closing words for us before we close out for the day?
No, I am just really excited about this opportunity and one, just having this conversation with you, Rachel. And I think it's so important for community to know who you're working with and who you are, who's teaching you, you know, who's behind the screen here, if you will. And so this opportunity is great. And I appreciate this chance just for folks to get to know me a bit better.
Sure. We don't want to be the wizard behind the curtain, you know?
No, absolutely not. No.
You know, I'd rather be out there, maybe not a flying monkey, but out there where everyone can see us.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being here and everything you do in your soul and your voice and your being. I just can't wait to see what we do together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Falami.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye.